Sean's actually got me looking at that thing to see whether or not it does go slower. Sean's like, when it gets to 23, watch it go slower.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, it was 24, but
yeah. All right. Welcome everybody to a bizarre episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, with my partner, Sean William, and Mr. Bob Rose. How's everybody doing tonight?
Sick kid, so I'm exhausted. As it is, my old ass can't keep up with these kids anymore anyway. But when one of them goes down, that drains the life force out of me.
I tell you, I had kids in my 20s, okay? Well, my late 20s, but I had kids in my 20s. Well, my wife had the kids. I just had the fun. And then 9 months later, I was responsible for the kid. But anyway, there's a thing, if you get into your 40s, Sean, you still laughing at that joke?
We went off the rails quick tonight.
Wait till I tell you the joke about my vasectomy. It's like they asked me one time, are you gonna have any more? I'm like, no, that factory's been shut down and all the employees have been laid off. Yeah.
Oh.
The best part.
Well, I had kids in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. So
Same.
I was just gonna say, when you're in your 40s, you know more what to do, but you don't have the energy to do it. That's why parents are so permissive when they're older. They know better, but they're like, too tired to fight this little bastard. When you're in your 20s and the kid starts screaming down the hallway, no, you can grab him by the belt loop. And this sounds like I'm going to abuse my child, but you can grab him by the belt loop and watch your little arms and legs kick in the air. And I'm like, you ain't running anymore, buddy. But you're in your 40s, like, okay, that's about a 30 to 40 pound kid. I ain't gonna be able to pick that up. I'm gonna hurt my back chasing this kid down. So what happens, man? Yeah,
I want to see you pick Matt up by his belt loop.
Now, yeah.
Yeah, no, that ain't happening now. That ain't happening now. That wasn't happening when he was in his teens. That wasn't happening anymore. I did used to pick up my kids in the pool. They used to call it Johnny Quest because it was like in the beginning, the opening credits, they've got the scene of the mummy holding the guy up like that, and he's, that's what they would love. That I would pick him up, hold him up over my head, and I'd throw him in the pool. Throw him, and they'd even do like the little guy. If you watch the actual cartoon, The Curse of Anubis, he's going no, kicking his arms and legs. And of course, my youngest, that's what she would do. So one day I got the bright idea when she was about 8. I said, I'm gonna play Johnny Quest, because I was okay when she was 5, 8 years old. And I go to pick her up, and now she's long and lanky. I'm going, oh, my God, this is nothing but arms and legs. I can't pick this child up anymore. So
I was the same way with Brianna. The first time I did it, she was 7, 8, 9. We both went over sideways.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, I do. I was telling that story again today about how I broke my arm. So, yeah, those days are over with. So.
Hey, John Butler, where are you? Because Under the Dome just set a new record. How quickly we went off the rails.
That's right.
Yes.
We started off the rails. It
was officially off the rails at 23 seconds of the countdown to start live.
This is true.
Sean. Well, I have them ranging in age at the moment. My 4 range in age all the way from 34 down to 8.
I got
just can't imagine.
23, 16, and 4. And God. No more.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alan, you talked about your workers being laid off. Mine are on the execution line.
Well, you see, I had my 3 in the first 5 years we were married. So it was like, got a kid, boom. He gets to be 2, starting to be a little independent, pregnant again. Boom, here comes another one. that child's getting to be 2 or 3. Boom, here comes the third one. So, and it was like I
never did figure out what caused that.
I got it 3 times in 5 years. So you're talking about, it's like a starving man, a man on a desert island, or a man crawling in the desert, and somebody hands him a bottle of water. You're gonna take it. You're gonna take it. People who had to.
Oh my God.
People who had to try to have kids, and we never had to try. It just happened,
Well, see, I was in a different boat because once I got married, actually, before I got married, we were told that Michelle would never be able to have kids. And about 2 years into our marriage, she was pregnant. And I'm thinking, I don't know about this. And she had such a pregnancy that she never, up until very near the end, she never really showed. And it was probably 10 or 12 years later that Anna come along. And then we lost one. And then Andrew came along.
They didn't have TVs back then, Sean.
How do you think that?
It's funny you mention that, because this is what happens when you're the older brother. Okay, so my mom had 2 miscarriages between my brother and I, and she was having a conversation one time. I was probably about 6, 7. Some of my brothers about 4, maybe 3.5. And we had photo albums in our house and stuff. And I had a cousin who he passed away a long time ago, but he and I were about a month and a half apart. So there were a lot of pictures of the 2 of us together. And my brother, he's old enough to talk and understand. You can have a conversation with him. So he's listening to my mom talk to her girlfriend, and I guess she was pregnant. I don't remember exactly the details how this came up, but my mom mentioned she lost a baby at one time too. And my brother immediately is like, "Where'd you leave him? What happened to him?" So, being the evil older brother that I am, I pull out one of those pictures, and I said, "Yeah, you keep acting up around here, she might lose you too." So, and I'm like, I point to the picture. I said, "There he is. That's the one. He wouldn't clean up after himself, so she lost him." So I mean, that kind of shit. I told you about what I did with the little escalator. You know how you got the little utility door by the escalator where they can work on the motor and stuff like that. Well, it's a little bitty door. I said, Danny, there's a little man that lives in there. If you run away from your mom, he comes and gets you and drags you in that room. So she could never figure out why he was terrified to get on the escalator in the store. Come on, Danny, get up. No! Hey, that's what you do.
You're evil.
That's right. That's why I was the evil older brother. That was what he used to call me. I was scarred to his Mufasa, Yeah, that's what happens, But that's why when my wife said when we had just one, and I promise you guys we will get to football in a minute. We had just one child. She was an only child. So we're riding back. We would drive to New Orleans to see my parents because we lived in Lafayette at the time. We would drive to New Orleans to see my parents, and Matthew would sleep in his car seat in the back seat the whole time. But then right about till you got to Bro Bridge, you almost to Lafayette, he would wake up and he would answer. He wanted out of his car seat. So my wife would climb in the back seat of the car. We had a little Honda Civic back then, and she would hold him and interact with him and stuff like that to keep him calmed down till we got to the house. And she just says out of the blue, boy, I can't wait for him to have a younger brother or a sister so they can entertain each other in the back. And I looked over at her. I'm like, let me tell you how my brother and I used to entertain each other in the back for long car trips. I said, that is such a classic only child statement. And she realized what she said after she said it, but still, I just looked at her and said, there's a reason why we had a camper top on the back of a truck with 2 sliding glass windows between the two. And if my brother and I started fighting, the windows would close and lock. Whoever survived when we got to where we were going, that was it.
Well, my dad was infamous for, he'd have one hand on the wheel and he'd be reached back over the back seat swinging at us. And it didn't take us long to figure out that if we leaned back, he couldn't reach us. And then my dad kind of figured out that if you tap on the brake, that puts everybody back in play.
Yeah. No, my mom, I had no doubt in my life, and no doubt at all that my mom and dad, if they couldn't reach us and they were ready to kill us, they would lock up the car like cops rolling up on a drug deal. Or the Blues Brothers pulling into a parking spot, hop out the car, and they kill us right there in the street.
Yep.
And then get in the car and drive off like it's nobody's business while your corpse is laying in the ground.
Yep.
That's just the way it goes. So,
but I will say this: watching, and this is both funny and real. Watching how my mom dealt with us and raised us taught me how to raise my kids.
I said that to my kids when we evacuated for we evacuated for Ida. I said, because they kept looking, both daughters went with us. My son was fine here in Lafayette, but I said, one day you're going to be the adult that your kids are going to be looking to you for have all the answers. And I can't tell you when that happens. It just does. Mm-hmm. You figure you got to make the decisions, or no one's going to make a decision, so you got to do it. And my youngest looks at me, she says, I think I'm going to be a kid for a while longer. So,
well, I can remember shortly after Michelle and I married, we would go through rough patches where we were fighting like yard dogs, and I would go and see my mom, and I would sit there and just bitching about it, and she'd let me say everything that I had to say, and then she'd look at me and say, hey, you were grown enough to get married, you're grown enough to deal with this.
Yeah, that's you just have to, it just happens. I can't describe it anywhere else than that. It just happens. So
yeah.
The first time I took my son to a Saints game, I realized that, okay, I'm the dad now, So, all right. So enough about, we have to have one whole episode just about raising kids.
What were we calling it last week that are outside the dome?
Yeah, outside the dome. Yeah.
Right now, I just hope somebody raises Jameis.
Well, we can talk about that tonight because, the Saints won. They beat the Patriots 28-13.
The evil empire.
Yeah, and the defense looked incredible, like it did 2 weeks ago. Who'd have thought? Missing players and not having all your coaches would have made that much of a difference, but obviously it does.
Excuse my terminology, but it keeps me up at night thinking about the fact that we beat Aaron Rodgers resoundingly.
Yeah.
We beat Bill Belichick, and we allowed Sam Darnold to look like the league MVP. That disturbs me greatly.
They are leading the division right now, 3-0.
I think that's a lot more. Let's see, how can I put this? It's a lot more smoke and mirrors than it is solid play, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a long season, 17 games. And I had said a while back that you really don't get a good feel for how teams are going to be until weeks 4, 5, and 6 because
well, it's a weird season already. I mean, you have teams like the Kansas City Chiefs that's 1-2.
Yeah.
The Bengals go to Pittsburgh and just absolutely blow the doors off the Steelers. The Rams look like the cream of the crop right now.
The Raiders are 3-0.
Yeah.
Won 2 overtime games. Denver's 3-0 with Teddy. So there's a lot of football to be played.
Yeah.
And we're about to hit what traditionally has been the best month of for Sean Payton, October.
Yeah.
I think we haven't.
But it's going to be tough sledding this year.
Well,
looking at the schedule.
Yeah, we haven't lost a game in October since I think 2015 or 2016. We have traditionally been, I guess, since 2010, had a winning record in October, either 3-1 or undefeated. So I think 2010 was the last time we lost 2 games in October. So, I mean, that's a long time. A lot of players are coming in and out through the door. So I guess given what we've seen the past 3 weeks, do you think, and I'll ask you this first, Bob, do you think that this offense can win in October? We've got the Giants, the Washington football team, I think a bye, and then Seattle. I think that's how the schedule plays out.
Yeah, that's exactly how it plays out. Can the offense win? No.
Yes.
Can the team win? Yeah. You don't need a great offense to beat the New York Giants. You don't need a great offense to beat the Washington Redskins.
There we go.
As long as you play strong defensively. And the offense doesn't shoot you in the foot repeatedly, like what happened, like what happened in the Saints' favor last week. So that kind of game plan can work the next 2 weeks. Will it? Only time will tell. This offense absolutely needs to improve to even have a shot to win on the road at Seattle, one of the toughest places in the league to play, even against what appears to be a down Seahawks team. And then you finish out the month at home against Tampa Bay. Home there on a gravel road in your backyard. You need an offense that can put 30 points on the board to beat the Buccaneers. Otherwise, you won't. I'm not saying you have to score 30, but you have to be capable of scoring 30 against the Buccaneers. Otherwise, you're not going to win. So this team is more than capable of having another strong October. But like Sean says, Sean Payton in his career is 41-13 in October, 24-4 at home, and they've won 15 straight October games. And by the way, November is pretty close to that same kind of winning percentage as October. Not that you can count. I mean, I'm a football historian. You two know this. Anybody that follows me knows this. Obviously, for history to repeat itself, this has to be an improved Saints team, and there is still a lot offensively that worries me.
Sean,
yes.
I'm going to ask you this. I know you didn't get to watch much, if any, of the game against the Patriots, but you did watch the Carolina game, and you did watch the Packers game, which is 2 extremes of Jameis Winston. You've got probably about the middle, which is what we saw in New England. Do you think Jameis Winston's going to improve over the next few weeks? I mean, he's going to be playing a pretty bad Giants team. Washington football team actually has a pretty good defense, especially that front
Really
four.
good.
Yeah, especially that front four. You're going at Seattle, and then you on Halloween you host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Can Jameis Winston improve over the next few weeks to become a much more consistent quarterback and less of one that seems to be kind of on a short leash?
Well, to be honest, I'm still not buying into quote unquote Jameis is a better quarterback because the prayer that he threw up to Marquez Callaway, that's probably one of the dumbest passes I've ever seen him throw. He's not making solid decisions, which is something that he is going to have to do because you're coming up on a stretch of games here where you're going to be playing probably some of the better teams in the league, Seattle, Tampa, and you're not going to be able to throw things like that and get away with it the way that you did against New England. New England is not a good team. They just aren't. They have a rookie quarterback. I'm not saying that Mac Jones won't ever be an elite quarterback, but he isn't right now. And the Saints benefited greatly from that. And you're seeing the same sort of thing out of like the Jets. There's a lot of difference between being a really good college quarterback and being a really good pro quarterback. And that's an education that usually comes the hard way. Can Jameis do it? For the Saints to succeed, he's going to have to. I do believe that.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at the schedule right here, and Bob, let me get your thoughts in a second too on this. After Tampa Bay on Halloween night, you've got you host Atlanta, then you go to Tennessee and face Derrick Henry.
Yay.
You go and face a schizophrenic Philadelphia Eagles team. They looked well. They did. They looked great against the Falcons, and they looked like garbage against the Cowboys. And speaking of the Cowboys, you've got two very good teams you're going to be hosting: the Buffalo Bills and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
back to back. Then you get the woeful Jets, who probably be an 0 team by that point still. Because I'm sorry, I just don't see the Jets winning a ball game this year. And it's not a knock on their coach. And it's not a knock on Zach Wilson. They just have that little talent.
I think that Zach Wilson is eventually going to be a really good quarterback. He has all the tools. He sometimes makes really good decisions. But playing like I just said, playing quarterback at BYU is a lot different than playing quarterback in New York City. Number one, first and foremost, you're in the largest market that the NFL has to offer. Mm-hmm. You're going to be overly criticized every week, and you're playing against elite talent. And, I've said this for years. In college, you're playing teams where there may be one or two standout players. But in the pros, you're playing against the best 22 players in the league.
Well, it's like what Urban Meyer allegedly said, how he's coach at Jacksonville. It's like every week I'm playing Alabama.
Yeah.
There's no Purdue on your schedule. There's no Central Missouri State homecoming game. There's nothing like that. So, Bob, your thoughts on Winston's 3 games so far, and do you think he's going to improve enough that Sean Payton is going to become less conservative, a less conservative play caller?
The second part of your question is going to be, I believe, the key to whether the Saints probably even go to the playoffs at all, let alone are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. First of all, on that touchdown pass to Callaway, thank God it worked. But even on the sidelines, coach was ready to ream Jameis from nasal to back of skull. And look, we have seen Drew Brees get away with that kind of play before. But the big difference was Drew knew what he had in a Jimmy Graham or a Marcus Colston or a Jeremy Shockey, players that bodied out the defenders. So it was a much different situation than what Jameis was doing. And I don't care. I know what he said, kind of tongue in cheek. He said he was attempting to throw the ball away. And a defender did have him by the waist. So he wasn't able to get full zip on it. But we've seen Jameis make those kind of crippling interceptions when he was trying to throw the ball away in the past or trying to make a play. And like Sean alluded to, you're not going to get away with that week after week after week. You didn't sell your soul to the devil like Tom Brady did or Aaron Rodgers did. So that stuff just isn't going to work. But it's precisely that kind of play and that kind of performance. Because Jameis didn't play well on Sunday. He made a couple nice throws in big situations. I will give him that. And he was extremely crisp on the first touchdown drive. Yeah. But right now, it's painfully obvious the coach doesn't have confidence in the quarterback, and quarterback is so paralyzed by fear of making a mistake that he's not trusting what he's seeing and putting the ball in a position for his playmakers to make plays. That's the part that has to improve first and foremost. Jameis needs to make a decision, a good decision like that. And protection up front will certainly help. But when I rewatched the Patriots game, there were also at least 6 throws that I can count on off the top of my head where Jameis had an open receiver and about a half second to get him the ball. And he froze just that half second, which in the NFL is all the difference between a success and a failure. He froze that half second, and then he was either running for his life or had to throw the ball away or just took a sack. That's what Sean Payton sees, and that's why Sean Payton doesn't have confidence to kind of open up that playbook for him. And as it stands right now, the New Orleans Saints are 100% reliant on – forget the running game for a second. They're 100% reliant on defense and field position. And that will probably be 22 to 25, maybe 27 of these teams in the league. But it won't get you to a conference title game, let alone a Super Bowl.
No, and I had said to somebody, because they were really critical, the fact that they said that, if Mac Jones throws a ball up for grabs, he's trying to make a play. Like Brett Favre, when he threw a ball up for grabs, he was trying to make a play. And my response to that is, yeah, but Brett Favre didn't have a season where he threw 30 interceptions. And like it or not, that is the label that gets put on you. Brett Favre had 3 MVP trophies in his trophy case already, and a Super Bowl title, back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. So when he was playing rocket ball and just throwing the ball over the place or flipping it underhand or, doing this little half-ass throw, to somebody for a touchdown, and people are like, oh my God, what a play. They gave him the credit for that because you've got that hardware in your trophy case behind you. Jameis doesn't have that. Yeah, Jameis has got a Heisman Trophy and a national championship. So does Danny Werfel. Yeah, and Danny Werfel didn't throw for 5,000 yards either. I get that. But the point is, your college career doesn't give you – it buys you a couple years in the NFL. But there's a lot of Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks who fail in the NFL. There's a lot of national championship quarterbacks who fail in the NFL. So Jameis has that to prove that he is a better quarterback than what you saw in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And the problem you have right now is, and someone said this on Twitter, and it's perfect. It's paralysis by analysis. Jeff Triplett or not Jeff Triplett, Mike Triplett or Jeff Duncan. Jeff Triplett was an official. One of those two posted a stat saying, counting the Carolina game now, jameis takes on average 3.1 seconds to make a decision to throw the ball. In contrast, Drew Brees got rid of the ball in 2 seconds or less. Now, yeah, those are shorter passes and stuff, but sometimes jameis needs to just take the short pass.
Yeah.
Don't hold the ball waiting for the deep pass to open up. Take the short pass. I think that's part of the reason why the offensive line gave up sacks or looked like it was struggling against Carolina as much as against New England as much as it was. I think Carolina just overloaded blitz the whole time, and we never picked it up all game, so the offensive line looked terrible. But I think the offensive line, and I think about America's game, 1980, Oakland Raiders. Gene Upshaw said, in your head, when you're playing offensive line, you're pass blocking. You've got a clock in your head too, and you're counting in your head 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. How long do I have to hold this block before the ball is gone? And he used to say, even with all that noise and all that chaos, you can hear the ball leave the quarterback's hand.
Oh, yeah.
But Dan Pastorini used to pat the ball before he throw it every time. And he says that sound in your head, because you're used to blocking for Ken Stabler and, before that, the Mad Bomber, Darryl LaMonica, and even George Blanda, okay, in my head, 3 seconds, I heard the sound. I don't have to hold this block anymore. And he still has the ball. So he's getting killed. And eventually Pastorini got broken. He broke his leg. And then Plunkett takes over and takes him to the Super Bowl. But my point with that whole story is that this offensive line is used to Brees getting rid of that ball in 2 seconds or less.
Yeah.
And you're being asked now to hold that block for 3.5 seconds. And it's like watching a 30-second commercial, or you need to go to the bathroom really, really bad, and someone is on the toilet. That's the longest 30 seconds or the longest 3 or 4 seconds of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so. The offensive line. Ruiz is struggling. Pete looks terrible, but even Ramczyk looked terrible against New England, and I think that's because he's being asked to hold blocks longer than he's used to.
Sure.
And then you balance that out with the running game. Peyton's running a conservative offense. The defense doesn't respect the Saints receivers, so they're loading the box against the run. So now the offensive line looks terrible blocking for the run because it's 5 on 7 or 8 because they're all sitting in the box. So, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think he has to play better. And I don't know when that's going to happen.
No, and I think he will. Getting Michael Thomas back in hopefully 3 or 4 weeks, is certainly a big help. I did like a couple of the plays that Deontay made. Callaway showed up. Stills made a nice catch. If those kind of things continue, you will see the maturation of Jameis Winston and thus the confidence of Sean Payton growing. Now, to be fair, and Alan, Sean, you guys made great points about the offensive line. But let's call a spade too. Ruiz is nothing more than a worn down speed bump the way he's pass protecting. Yeah. And I don't know who stole Ryan Ramczyk and replaced him with, Andrews Pete. But those two guys pass blocking are absolutely abysmal right now. And I say I call Ramczyk abysmal by Ryan Ramczyk standards.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the line needs Ryan Ramczyk to be Ryan Ramczyk. especially until McCoy gets back. Because what I see out of Ramchek's getting beat off his right shoulder, off of the outside. And when I rewatched, especially the New England game, it was happening when he was shading or favoring his inside shoulder, his left shoulder, where the backup Calvin Throckmorton is. And by the way, I think Throckmorton's been playing pretty well. But Ramczyk is almost cheating to help double team or at least help Throckmorton with an more inside rush, and therefore he's getting beat on the outside. Now, of the two spots, you would much rather your tackle get beat around the edge than on his inside shoulder. And that's the part that's on Jameis Winston to either see that or recognize that that's what the protection is going to do. And what you do, and Breeze was a master at this, you read from inside out rather than outside in.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been in the back of my mind, and I've said it privately, but I'm going to go ahead and say it on this podcast. Jameis has to learn pocket presence, much better pocket presence. And I loathe to make this comparison because it invites a certain kind of response, but I can't compare it to older quarterbacks because the audience probably doesn't know who the hell I'm talking about. But Jameis Winston drifts instead of dropping back and drifts in the pocket. And what I mean by that is, and Aaron Brooks did it too. And that's why I didn't want to make this comparison, because that was one of the things that got Aaron Brooks in a lot of trouble with Saints fans, is because you watch a guy, and we'll take Breeze out of the equation. You watch a guy like Justin Herbert now. We'll put him in there. Or even Russell Wilson. You know, Joe Montana was a master at this. It's quick, solid steps, 3-step drop, boom, boom, boom. And they hit that 4th step, and boom, there's a ball. It's gone. You know, John Elway, same thing. Joe Namath, same thing. 5-step drop. When they hit that 5th step, boom, there goes the ball. It's gone. Okay? Jameis Winston does a drop, and then he starts to drift to the right or to the left. And when he does that, your pass protection, and we're talking about the cup, okay? Your pass, what Paul Brown invented in the 1950s, you know, forming the cup where everybody turns to the outside. If I start drifting, and I saw this when Teron Armstead was blocking somebody, and I saw this when Ryan Ramczyk is blocking somebody. He's drifting outside the cup. Armstead's taking a guy to the outside. Jameis drifts right into where you're taking the guy, so you're bringing in a sack. And Aaron Brooks did it constantly. Yeah. Oh, my God. You know, and that would vary from series to series. Some series, choppy steps, boom, ball's gone. You know, next time I'm watching him drift, and oh, my God, here he goes. He's going to go walk right into a sack, you know, and because he's looking downfield. And he's drifting so he can see, because he's looking for his passing lanes. It's a tall quarterback. He shouldn't have to be looking that hard. This is not like Drew Brees, who had to take essentially a 12-step drop, you know, to see deep, because Brees would take the deep drop and then he'd slide up into the pocket and let it go. Watch this Sunday. Just do me a favor and watch Winston drop back and see if he ever steps up into the pocket to make a throw. And what I mean is, does he take the hitch? Does he slide up into the pocket and then step into the throw? Not does he slide up and then decide to run. You're going to watch him drop back, and then he starts to drift, or then he'll start to run. And that is something that has to be fixed. And I know he knows what he's doing. I know he knows he's doing it. And he's thinking, he'll say at the film, yeah, I know, my bad. I know I'm not supposed to do this. But it's almost like it's on instinct, on autopilot, because all he's doing is looking downfield. He's thinking about, when's the guy going to come open so I can let the ball go to make the throw? And he's not even paying attention to the fact that he's just automatically drifting again. And that's to me, that is one of the reasons why he's taking so many sacks, and it seems that he's taking so long to get rid of the ball because of that. And that's I don't want to compare him to Aaron Brooks because then it invites unfortunate things. That's not my point. There's lots of quarterbacks who drift. Okay, I see lots of them do it.
Look at Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger has done most of his career. When Roethlisberger plays poorly, it's because he drifts.
Yeah,
all throughout his career.
Yep.
Well, for most of his career, Jameis has played for coaches that encouraged the whole gunslinger approach.
Yes.
And that's completely opposite of what we need for him to be in New Orleans. And I mean, you've done it for 5 years. You've been encouraged to play that way for 5 years. That's expecting a lot to make that turnaround. I'm not excusing that sort of play, but you have to see the whole picture to understand.
Yeah, Sean, you're absolutely right. And that's where Sean Payton is he is inside Jameis Winston's head and has pounded in him. We don't need that gunslinger right now. I'll tell you when we need it, because we will need it at some point, but we don't need it on a regular basis. And that's where Jameis is right here, right now. Mm-hmm. And listen, and any psychologist, sports psychologist especially, will tell you this, that it takes 30 to 60 days to physically fix a bad habit.
Yep.
And this is any physical bad habit. Call it an addiction too if you want. It's one and the same. And this is where Jameis is at right now. He's had these kind of bad habits for so long that it's going to take a couple of months active. I realize he's been technically in the Saints system for over a year, but he's not been at the point of attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't have someone learn a foreign language, learn the language of Spanish, and sit in a classroom for a couple of months and then drop them in the middle of Spain and expect that they'll be able to successfully get a bite to eat. It's going to take a while for them to get out of here and translate that into the physical activities. And I think, and I certainly hope, that that's what we're seeing with Winston at this stage.
Well, and it's also worth mentioning that I can't speak for the guy, obviously, but in Jameis' head is the fact that he's essentially playing for his career this year.
Sure.
Terrified of making a mistake and being that guy.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why I said your label is you threw 30 interceptions in a single season. That's your label.
Yeah.
You have to break that label. And it's no different than Jeff George being labeled a coach killer, Jay Cutler, Smoking Jay, who doesn't give a damn about anything. That becomes your label. That's okay. Here's a good example. We talked about the Chiefs in the beginning. Chiefs are 1-2. Football Night in America shows that Patrick Mahomes tries that no-look pass again, and he throws an interception. The guy's wide open. He throws an interception because he didn't throw it accurately. And Drew Brees says, "Why are you doing this? Set your shoulder. The guy's wide open. Just get into your rhythm and throw a ball." But it's like Mahomes now has that label of SportsCenter highlight. I'm going to make that incredible throw that everybody goes, "Whoa, I got to play that back again." And it just fills up on YouTube over and over and over again. The no-look pass. That's a bad habit to get into. You can get away with that once or twice in your career. You can't be expected to make, be like Steph Curry on the football field and just do these, here we go. I'll show my age. Pistol Pete Maravich. These looks, these unbelievable plays. You can't be a highlight reel. It's about winning the game. It's not about being on SportsCenter's top 10 best plays of the night.
Well, it was the same thing with Brett Favre in the NFC Championship game in 2009.
Yep.
That pass that was intercepted at the end of the game, he's completed that 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, but it's a no-no. I saw the Buffalo Bills quarterback Josh Allen throw that exact same pass. The only difference was there was no cornerback around it. He threw a touchdown pass across his body into the middle of the field, which it's a cardinal rule. You never do it. But the problem is you got away with it. So now you think you can get away with it all the time. So once you get a label, once the pundits have given you a label of the kind of quarterback that you are, then it's like, use a baseball analogy, learning as a right-hander to become a left-handed batter. Jameis is learning how to be a left-handed batter right now. He's trying to break that label of
stigma.
The 30 interception guy and become the guy who can play, for lack of a better term, he's playing Teddy Bridgewater's system. He's playing the Teddy Bridgewater kind of game. We've got a good enough defense. You don't need to make big plays. Just control time possession. You've got good weapons. Throw the short passes. Move the chains. We want to have 15 and 16 play drives and on 80 yards, or your defense is going to get you a short field and we're just going to score. We're already in field goal range, provided we got Will Lutz kicking and not Rojas kicking, but we're in field goal range. Don't make any mistakes. Don't throw the ball away. We can win kicking field goals. It's almost Jim Moore-ish in this way he's playing. He wants this team to play. Defense and special teams will win this game for you. Just don't make any mistakes on offense. Control the clock. You've got the weapons to do it. So, am I wrong? Do you see?
No, you can. Time of possession is key. You have the defense to win games with time of possession.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, even if you look at the loss against Carolina, there were several opportunities where the Saints had glorious field position, either because of a turnover or two, a blocked field goal, or even a defensive stop. So that kind of philosophy, it's going to be how the Saints are going to win or lose football games, I would say, for probably most of the season. But book it that it's going to be that way for at least the next month to 2 months.
Bob, do we have a timetable as far as the return of Lutz, the return of Michael Thomas?
First, Lutz and Traquan Smith are eligible to come off injured reserve this week. That doesn't mean that they will. And, frankly, if we don't hear anything by early tomorrow, that means that they're not going to this week. And I honestly expect at least Will Lutz to be shelved for a couple of more weeks. You want to make sure that core injury on a kicker is 100% healed rather than force him out there. And I believe that Sean Payton thinks, and he's right, I believe that Sean Payton thinks that he has the roster to win against the New York Giants and Washington Redskins without needing a last-second field goal to do it. As far as, and these are the big ones, Quan Alexander will be eligible to come off IR after next week's game. I kind of expect, again, if the Saints defense, knock on wood, continues to play as well as they are, they'll probably try to keep him sat until the bye week. After the bye week, that's when Michael Thomas is eligible to come off the PUP list, the PUP list, and we'll get a better feel for whether Thomas is on target for a return against Seattle probably the weekend of the Washington game. And David Onyemata will be eligible to come back in time for the Buccaneers Halloween game. His suspension is 6 games, not 6 weeks.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed that out, Bob, because a lot of people think it's 6 weeks. It's not. It's 6 full games. So the bye week isn't a break, you know. Yeah, the guys that are exposed to come off of IR this week are, because we didn't mention these two, Nick Vannett, the tight end, Traquan Smith, Ken Crawley, and Will Lutz. So, you know, Ken Crawley is coming to save the day.
You want to talk about a Wally Pipp. Ken Crawley was playing really, really well in training camp in preseason. And yeah, he'll be lucky to see any defensive snaps. I mean, hell, even Bradley Roby, I thought played a really good game against Carolina. He got 3 defensive snaps against the New England Patriots. Because, I mean, obviously not going to sit Marshawn Lattimore, and Paulson Adebo is playing that well. So Crawley just strengthens an already impressive secondary.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't believe
we got a steal in Adebo.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is playing, and I don't think this is overstating the obvious. He is playing at the level of rookie Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
He is, and he's being targeted a lot. They're going at him. They're not even going at Lattimore. They're going at him.
Last week we saw the Patriots target Lattimore more than we're used to seeing. And you understood why. It had nothing to do. Marshawn had that less than 2 weeks removed for a thumb surgery. Mm-hmm. They were testing to see how well he could tackle. And Marshawn did give up a couple passes. All but one of them were inconsequential. But yeah, you're right. Sean and Alan. Adebo, as long as Lattimore is on that other side, Adebo is going to get tested a lot. And you have to be really, really impressed with the way he's playing so far.
Absolutely.
Very much.
And like Mike Tthe said, if he had played, assuming that it would have been a COVID year and he played a full senior year, he probably is a low first, high second round pick, and we got him in the 3rd. So it's not like, it's not like you stole him, but it's not like you took a gamble on somebody that nobody was thinking about.
Right.
He was highly rated.
Case in point,
his senior year.
Case in point, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Nobody had their eyes on Kamara.
Well, I think Kamara, they saw him as not as a feature back, but as a third down back,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ask Minnesota how that works.
Yeah. Exactly. So, it's you've got a steal in that. And, Sean Payton had said the other day that cornerback has come from a position where they thought they had the most concern about of all the positions on the roster to a position of strength, arguably the strongest position on the team right now.
Well, I mean, we spoke to that repeatedly leading up to the season. That was definitely a position that we were all terrified of.
Oh, there has not been a single person who is on Saints Twitter or Saints social media at all that has said, "Boy, I miss Jack Rabbit." And that's just a credit how good Adebo is playing. And you've made a good move by bringing in a Bradley Roby. Just in case something happens with Lattimore, he gets injured, and Nick Crawley, not Nick Crawley, Ken Crawley. Ken Crawley. I'm thinking Nick Vannett and Ken Crawley combined. Ken Crawley probably may end up on the practice squad or inactive, some weeks because, you've got Trufant out there really as your third corner, that you could possibly activate in case of injury. I'm sorry, your fourth corner behind Roby, so it's a great position to be in right now.
Adebo is playing so well that nobody talks about Gardner Johnson.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
Which is kind of distressing because we don't have him to piss off the other team now.
Well,
so
I don't want the damn taunting penalties. And that goes back to what we talked about last week. I mean, just one more judgment call by the officials. But well, let's talk a little bit about the draft class so far. Peyton Turner didn't play very much Sunday because the former Kansas City Chiefs defensive end, I can never say his name. I know the K is silent. Yeah, I know the K is silent. Yeah, that's about all I know. But
silent K, we'll call him that.
Yeah. Well, at work, job I used to have, we had cereal in the break room, and it was Special K. So it was 2 containers. So one guy wrote Special K, and the other one wrote Not So Special K. So he said he was going to draw a little short school bus on there, but he was afraid to offend somebody by calling it Special K. So anyway,
that's an Eddie Murphy joke.
Yes. So anyway, Peyton Turner didn't play very much because, the guy ahead of him is playing very well. Davenport is supposed to come back next week from IR. I expect he probably is off for another week, at least, because that's a significant injury. Even if it's a strain of your pec muscle, that's a significant injury. So we haven't seen much out of Turner except for one game. I thought he looked pretty good against Carolina. In a bad effort, I thought he looked pretty good.
Agreed.
We've talked about. I forgot now. I just drew a blank on who our second-round pick was.
Pete Werner.
Okay, thank you. Pete Werner got his first appearance. He didn't start, but he got his first appearance Sunday. How would you grade him, Bob? How would you grade Werner for what little you saw of him?
I thought Werner played really well. His strength is in space, and used in a coverage role. He plays with good fundamental positioning, and we saw all of that. I saw all of that on Sunday, and I think that they're going to continue to try to use him in that role. I think with the way Zach Vaughn was exposed in coverage, they're going to use Vaughn differently, if at all possible, and maybe use Vaughn on early downs, or when you're playing a mobile quarterback such as Daniel Jones this week. If you're going to employ 3 linebackers, Vaughn could be your third linebacker, and he's athletic enough that you could use him to spy that mobile quarterback and just have him go get him once a guy like Daniel Jones breaks containment. Werner is the type of guy. He's a less physical and less intense Demario Davis. Werner is the type of guy that you're going to want on backs coming out of the backfield or moving over to grab a tight end if they move into the slot. And I thought that Dennis Allen used him brilliantly in that role on Sunday. And I think Werner is only going to get better as far as his vision, anticipation, and sideline pursuit of a ball carrier. But in the meantime, you want to use him in pass coverage, and I think he played very well in that role on Sunday.
Well, and it's funny because very quietly, Caden Ellis out there is having a very good season so far.
Yeah,
I mean, for an undrafted free agent, because I think he was undrafted. I don't think
seventh round pick.
7th round pick? Okay. For a 7th round or undrafted free agent, I think Ellis is playing extremely well. I mean, he looks better than Bond. He's been out there longer than Bond. And, these numbers are throwing me off now because these players are wearing these numbers that I'm not used to seeing.
I hate it.
And I know. It's because when you've been watching football as long as we have, you're used to linebackers wearing 50s or 90s as numbers. Yep. So I see Werner out there as 20. I'm thinking defensive back. Okay. I'm like, okay, who's number 20? Who's this guy? And the same thing is true of single digits out there. I'm going, you're throwing me off with these things. And yes, I've watched college football, and yes, college football is different because college football, up until not long ago, You didn't have names on the back of your jersey in college football. It was just you just had the number. That was it. Names in some schools are still like that. They don't put the names in the back of the jerseys. But college football is different because you don't know who half these players are because sometimes there's 220s out there. There's because if they got a large enough football team, you got 100 and something players out there. You got a number 7 on offense and a 7 on defense.
Yep.
In fact, UL, first time I've ever seen this happen, they threw a flag on Coastal Carolina because he had 2 players with the same jersey number out on the field at the same time. I didn't even know that was a penalty, but apparently it is.
It should be.
But yeah, so that's different in college football. You learn players after you watch the game for a while, and the announcers talk about it, and they pull up the picture of the player. But other than that, you don't give a damn. It's just that's just somebody. That's just an LSU Tiger right now. That's just an Alabama Crimson Tide player. You don't care who that is right now.
The Crimson Turd.
But my point is, okay, so we've only really seen 2 players from this draft class really have any kind of significant impact. Werner's just starting to get back into it. You're not going to see Ian Book. That was a 4th round pick, unless the season goes completely off the rails. You're not going to see Ian Book at all.
If we get to watch Ian Book, it's not going to be a good situation.
Yeah,
it means I'm going to be breaking 14 years of sobriety and drinking on this show. So.
Hey, you never know. That could be your quarterback of the future. Who knows? But
but this ain't the future.
Yeah. Hey, Avery Perkins and I were texting back and forth during the Sunday night game. This is going to start Sean drinking in a minute. We called the 49ers Packers game let's see who's going to be the next Saints quarterback game between Jimmy Garoppolo and Aaron Rodgers, so and it's so funny, I'll have to throw this in there because we're talking Saints football and other quarterbacks. Tom Brady threw for 400 yards, no interceptions, I think 4 touchdowns, and lost. And Saints Twitter was like, oh, so he got the full Drew Brees experience. This is what happens.
Aaron Rodgers is my quarterback in our fantasy league this year. I have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, you didn't do too well. You didn't do too well. No, you did well against Detroit, but you didn't do too well last week, did you?
No, actually, I won by 49 points.
Oh, that's
this
good.
Week. And the person that I was playing had Tom Brady.
But, Jimmy Garoppolo got to enjoy the Drew Brees experience. Mm-hmm. He marched him down the field, and with 37 seconds left, takes the lead. Goes off the field thinking, I've won this ball game on an incredible pass to George freaking Kittle. But anyway, I have a distaste for 49er tight ends. I really do. We can go
Vernon effing Davis.
Yeah, we can go all the way back to Brent Jones and so forth. But yeah,
Dwight Clark.
Well, Dwight Clark wasn't a tight end. He was a receiver.
The slowest wide receiver to ever play. So I mean, he might as well have been a tight end.
But yeah, so
these other guys run like 4.3, 4.4. Dwight Clark, you timed in a 40 with a calendar.
Yeah.
So Garoppolo got to get the Drew Brees experience because it's 37 seconds left. You're only up by 2. All he needs is a field goal to win, and Aaron Rodgers does it in 2 plays, basically. In 37 seconds. So, hey, it was just
to be such a dynamic defense. The 49ers really shit the bed on that drive.
Yep.
Well, how do you allow Devontae Adams to be open in not once but twice?
Yeah. But you know he's going to him, but it's a decision you're going to make. Do I keep everything in front of me, or do I pressure Rodgers? And because if you leave Rodgers alone, he's going to pick you apart. He's going to find a way to make the play.
Yeah.
So, and that's what they did. They dropped into coverage, and that's perfect for Rodgers. He's going to sit there and look, and boom, hit the guy. Hit Devontae Adams. He's looking for his number one receiver. You're not going to play man because you're so terrified to give up the big catch that you're giving up chunks of yardage when you need a field goal. And that's why, as a Saints fan, and this goes back a long, long time, as a Saints fan, I hated being up by 2 or 1 or even 3.
Yep.
I like being up by 5 or 8 or 9 or 10.
The prevent defense, all that prevents is winning.
4 even was a jinx. If you're winning 20-13, I hate that score. Because you're going to lose. It's going to happen. It's just one of those things. I like being up by us where they have to score a touchdown to win. I don't like to have to get in field goal range to win because Minneapolis miracle aside, that's what you want to see. That you want to make them get a touchdown. You want to make them have to go the length of the field. And I think even if you give up big chunk yardage plays, once the field gets smaller, you can change what you do on defense.
Yeah.
So, it was just so funny to say, 37 seconds. That's too much time for Aaron Rodgers. He's going to win this game. So, I mean, when they were talking about Tom Brady and stuff, this is the first time that ever happened in his career, and people are going, "Damn, this has only happened to Drew Brees like 21 times." So, unfortunately, though, and this goes back to how we started the show. The Saints aren't that kind of team anymore. They aren't the kind of team, except for that final drive did look good. But they aren't the kind of team that can win a game or pull a game out right now with one final drive, especially against a good to great defense.
Yeah.
I mean, do you all feel that way at
Absolutely.
this point of the season?
Absolutely. The last thing, and I'm speaking for myself here, the last thing that I want to see is Jameis Winston put into a position where he has to make the play. I'm completely uncomfortable with that.
And listen, it's not just Jameis Winston. It's the pass protection currently. Mm-hmm. It's Sean Payton's lack of confidence and lack of faith in Winston. And it's the receiving core. I wrote that article about the wide receivers leading up to the Patriots game. And there was a lot of people coming back at me in a critical way about all the receivers haven't played that bad and this and that and everything else. And listen, they might not be the worst receiving core to ever play in the NFL, but my response to anybody that would try to defend this receiving core, and listen, I love Callaway and I really love Deontay Harris, but they're not number one wide receivers. No. And that's what's costing this team right now. Part of what's many things costing this team. But my response to anybody that's defending this receiving core, this passing attack, is only one question. Is this the receiving core that you want with the game on the line and you have to score a touchdown or drive into field goal range with 37 seconds left to play and no timeouts? And anytime I pose that question to anyone, they always responded the same way. Absolutely not. And I'm like, okay, well, I rest my case.
So then let's ask this question. Are we putting too much in stock for the return of Michael Thomas? Do you think we are expecting way too much out of Michael Thomas when he comes back?
Well, speaking strictly for myself, no, I don't. I think that there's a lot of people that are expecting way too much. There's a lot of people that think, well, Michael Thomas is back. All wounds have healed. We're good to go. And I don't believe that's the case.
Bob, what do you think as far as Michael Thomas coming back? Are we putting way too much stock into he's going to suddenly make this passing game a lot more deadly?
Yeah, we are. And I know I am personally, and I admit it. And listen, and Sean kind of alluded to it a second ago. That's provided, at least with me, that comes with a big caveat. The big if, can Michael Thomas stay healthy, and will he be healthy upon his return? And if he is, and you never want to count that much on one player. And that's why I blame this situation directly on Sean Payton and his stubborn arrogance to not pay attention to the receiving core over the last 5 or 6 seasons. But because of that, we are in this situation where we need Michael Thomas to be the savior of this passing game. It makes Kamara better. It makes Jameis Winston the type of quarterback that we were alluding to with Brett Favre and Pat Mahomes earlier, the type of guy that can throw it up in coverage, kind of a wing and a prayer or a Hail Mary, because you have the type of guy that will 7 or 8 times out of 10 come down with the ball in that kind of wing and a prayer circumstance.
Yeah.
Well, Michael Thomas is the type of receiver that we don't have at this point. He's the type of guy that's going to go out there. He may not break a 60-yard bomb, but he's going to get separation and give you an option to drop it to him short, mid-range. And we don't have that right now.
He was a guy that Winston's going to be more willing to take risks throwing the ball to.
And that scares the hell out of me.
The Adam Trautman hype train is off the rails now. It's gone. Minka's, and I've said this for a long, long time. Too many people believe that the next tight end the Saints bring in can do everything Jimmy Graham did. And that becomes like the benchmark. Okay, if you're going to be a good tight end for the Saints, you got to put up Jimmy Graham numbers. And that's totally unrealistic.
That's not going to happen.
No, right. You'll never get that. And the sooner people realize that, the more they'll understand how he was a unique weapon.
Oh, yeah.
If you can get, Trautman looks like right now Josh Hill 2.0, which is not a bad tight end. It's just he's good as a blocker right now, not as a pass receiver. You're not going to get, a George Kittle or a the Kansas City tight end is
Kelsey.
Kelsey. You're not going to get that kind of production, and you have to stop thinking about that's your guide, that's your benchmark for a good tight end. Because
at the same time, you got to have a quarterback that's willing to take that intermediate route.
Well, to me, if you can just get a guy who can catch a few passes in a game when you need it to move the chains or in the red zone, you've got an effective tight end, especially in the way this offense is built right now. He's inside next to the tackle. He is a blocker first, a pass receiver second. The pass receiving tight end is Juwan Jamison. And last week they played more of max protect kind of offense. So Juwan Jameson's not going to get very many opportunities in that scenario. It's going to be the receivers.
The three of us called it leading up to the Patriots game that they would do exactly that. They did, and for the most part, it worked. Mm-hmm. Given the talent that the Giants have at edge rusher, and they do have talent there, I expect the same kind of philosophy to be employed this Sunday too. I think Trautman is going to get a lot more key snaps than what Juwan Johnson will, because they're going to need to have max protect.
And I think the other thing I was going to say, I think a lot of people, especially in the summertime, when they were talking about we're going to bring the deep ball back with Jameis, they were envisioning the Saints being what Matt Stafford is with the Rams. Mm-hmm. I mean, watch that offense go. He is flinging that ball everywhere. The difference, of course, is
We ain't got Cooper Kupp.
We don't have Cooper Kupp. And this is Stafford is a 12-year veteran, I believe. It seems like he's been around longer than that, but since 2009, 12-year veteran who has shown consistently that he's had a big arm and able to make big league throws, and he doesn't turn the ball over unless he's playing for a crappy team or throwing behind when the game's way behind, like he did with Detroit. So it's a totally different situation, and the Rams are not yet in a rebuilding mode. They don't have a running back, but they're not really in a rebuilding mode. So you've got all those weapons. You can throw the ball like Stafford can. The Saints aren't like that right now. The Saints aren't built that way. They don't have a Cooper Kupp. They don't have a Reynolds. They don't have those, or Higbee. They don't have those. They don't have those weapons. If we had those guys, we probably would see more of a vertical attack. But we just don't. We haven't had them for 4 years. Honestly.
Yeah. I'll be the first one to admit, I really didn't expect a lot out of the Rams because, quite simply, I believed that Stafford took such a beating in Detroit. I questioned how much he had left in the tank, and I was absolutely wrong to do so.
Well, Calvin brings up my two favorite receivers in the NFL right now. Both happen to play for the Rams. In the NFC, I'm talking about. Van Jefferson is somebody I wanted going back to the draft. Calvin can probably remember this. We've talked about Van Jefferson a lot, and I liked him a lot.
Same.
And he is just one of those guys. He's not going to get a lot of balls. He's not going to get a lot of yards, but he is one of those guys out there who makes plays when you're counting on him. Cooper Kupp's probably my favorite receiver in the NFC right now. Mm-hmm. Probably, arguably, my favorite receiver in the NFL. Because,
and he's producing at such a high level, consistently.
And you're talking about Cooper Kupp, and I love watching him play too. Van Jefferson, who I'm right with you. When I was doing the draft previews, 2 years ago, I was screaming and shouting, especially as Van was dropping down the draft boards. You mentioned Higbee, you mentioned Higbee, Allen. We didn't even mention Deshaun Jackson, who apparently has some ball left in him, and Robert Woods, who's a perennial 1,000-yard receiver.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kupp, Woods, Jefferson, Deshaun, Higbee, compared to Callaway, Harris, Stills, Lil Jordan, Hogan, and Troutman. Thanks, Sean Payton.
Yeah, I know. And
I remember on draft night texting back and forth with Bob, and when the Saints finally got on the clock, and they took Peyton Turner. I texted Bob. I said, "Who the hell is Peyton Turner?" And I won't repeat the expletives that he rattled off, but he was not pleased with the pick.
No, and I wasn't either. I mean, and like I said, Peyton Turner's turned out to be a very good player, and he probably is.
It's not about Turner though.
Yeah,
it's about you were in a position to address two glaring needs at wide receiver and defensive back. And at the time, you just kind of showed the world that you were completely comfortable going up against the guys from Atlanta, the guys from Tampa, everybody that you're going to play this year with P.J. Williams, Ken Crawley.
Hey, PJ had an interception on Sunday, so
even a stopped clock is right twice a day.
And listen, the three of us can agree that they got a player in a Debo, and Peyton Turner it looks like he's going to be one hell of a football player. And I liked the Debo coming out of college, and the more film I watched on Turner, the more I loved the player. But like Sean said, it had nothing to do with the player. You can't. Yeah, they look like they hit the nail on the head with a Debo, but they still waited till the third round to address that need. They waited till the seventh damn round to address the need at wide receiver with K'Wan Baker, who's still on the practice squad. And that's what Sean Payton has done with this position every single year. The arrogance, Lance Moore, Willie Snead, Brandon Coleman, and Deontay Harris, Marquez Cowell. We've had so much success with undrafted guys. Marcus Colston, in the 7th round. We'll do it again. Statistically, coach, if you're watching, call me, first of all, because we'd love to have you on the show. Coach, that is so statistically rare that you, Sean Payton, have put your passing game in the situation that it's in right now. You have.
Well, and regardless of Jameis Winston was never our quarterback. Okay. What did I hear about Jimmy Graham? What did I hear about Robert Meacham when he went to San Diego? Drew Brees made these guys into receivers. Okay, well, Drew Brees is going to be gone or is gone now. Okay. And whether Jameis is going to be a quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a quarterback, or we went and got somebody else to play quarterback, they're not Drew Brees. Okay. Right. So you needed to set up your quarterback for success. The best way you set up your quarterback for success is you surround him with weapons. Okay. And I think, and I know, in fact, if Jameis is not successful, we're going to see a lot of people blame Sean Payton for not getting him enough good weapons. And you brought in Emmanuel Sanders, you brought in Ted Ginn Jr. at both of them at the end of their careers, because these are guys that they were good enough to play in with an aging quarterback. They were going to make the plays because they were veteran receivers. But you needed to bring in a young guy who's had experience, who was probably, I kept looking for the next Joe Horn, a guy who was like the 3rd or 4th receiver somewhere that you weren't going to have to break the bank for,
right?
But probably was on the cusp of being that number 2, number 1 kind of guy. And we never even brought anybody in.
No.
And that was driving me crazy.
I'll repeat myself here. To an extent, I still hold Michael Thomas accountable for part of that.
This year, where they are right now this year, I do too.
Yeah. His handling of that situation was absolutely retarded.
But my attitude is, even if Thomas was healthy, 100% healthy, and he was out there playing, where's the guy who's going to be on the other side? I think Callaway is probably a good number 3 guy, a slot guy, who can occasionally be kicked out outside the numbers to play the 1 or 2 for a certain series. I think Ty Montgomery is a 4, special teams guy, come out there and do that. But Hogan, I like Deontay Harris, but he's a better kick returner than he is a receiver, although he can catch passes. But at his size, I don't like him being out there a lot.
No, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's why you brought in a Sanders. That's why you brought in Ted Ginn Jr., because you brought in a veteran guy, a speedster, but an older veteran receiver who can balance out your number 1 guy. You don't have to throw them the ball a lot, but you need them to open up the defense for your other receivers. You need the threat of him. I mean,
but the Emmanuel Sanders was completely mishandled, because you need him more this season than you ever did last year, and he was a one and done. What? And again, you were of the mind that you were going to have Michael Thomas to begin the season this year.
It was a salary cap decision. You had to make that decision. And I don't have a problem with Sanders being a 1-year rental, but you have to replace him with something. You can't replace him with,
that's where the problem lies. Is that and Drew Brees, like y'all said a few minutes ago, and like we've said for years, Drew Brees in his prime was the kind of receiver that made an average receiver good and a good receiver great. That Drew Brees was gone by the end of 2017. And it's at that point in time that Sean Payton didn't do his quarterback, his organization, or the future of his team any favors by continuing to ignore the wide receiver position. And that, as much as anything, cost the Saints another opportunity at a potential championship, because what happened when you ran into a team with a really good secondary or a top cover guy that managed to contain Thomas? You didn't even have to shut Thomas down, but you managed to contain Thomas. What happened? The passing game sputtered, because the defenses were able to sag and clamp down on Alvin Kamara, and we're seeing that this year. There's nothing wrong with Alvin's pass receiving ability. It's just that he has 4 guys on him coming out of the backfield, and what they would call a soft zone. If you're using a basketball term. So there's nowhere for Kamara to go when he comes out of the backfield, because, Alan, you said it at the onset of the segment, the wide receivers just don't scare anybody in opposing secondaries.
No, I mean, to me, if you're going to go for an aging guy or an older guy, and he's really not old, but if you're going to go for a receiver as a number 2 guy who can play number 1 if you needed, like an Emmanuel Sanders, to me, I would have gone after Sammy Watkins hard.
Yeah.
He's
absolutely.
I would have. That is my first target, Sammy Watkins. Maybe a Will Fuller, someone like that. Now I know you had cap issues and stuff like that, but that's never stopped you.
No. Anybody that says the Saints can't do this or that because of the salary cap, they clearly have not been paying attention, because the salary cap has never deterred the New Orleans Saints.
Well, I mean, there was moves they could have made to do that, but they didn't even attempt anything. I mean, we never got a single guy. We never brought a single guy in, if you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, they pulled Hogan off of the lacrosse field.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it was just we're gonna make do with what we have, and I think that was a critical mistake. And I think part of Winston's problem is that you don't have that number 2 guy who can act as your number 1 guy like a Sanders did. And as long as you have that, you're going to continue to see Winston hold the ball too long. You're going to see him take sacks, and you're going to see this passing game struggle. And it's not just that our receivers can't get separation, because I think they can get separation, but teams' defensive plans will be go get Winston, go after Winston, because we can make him take a sack, or we can make him regress to Tampa Winston, and he's going to throw the interception, which is going to help us. That's the thing. Michael Thomas, that gives you a receiver they at least respect and know they have to do something about, have to account for him. But that still doesn't lessen the overload blitzes. And especially with the offensive line struggling to pick these things up, it just makes it that much worse. So that's probably my biggest frustration for the week. And I think that's going to carry over for quite a few games. And I'm not even thinking about them going to the Super Bowl. I really am not, because would I like for them to go? Yeah. I view this as a transition year, but it didn't have to be this hard. If you just would have made the right move. It's not that I don't think Winston would still have some of these problems, but I think the passing game would not be nearly as conservative if we would have got somebody experienced early in free agency, or even made a trade for somebody.
Yep.
I'm not even remotely considering Super Bowl. And to be honest, at this point, the erratic play or results, whatever you want to call it. I'm not even looking at the playoffs. I'm looking week to week.
Well, you've got an extra playoffs spot, so somebody's got to come. And you look at the NFC Central. Oh, I'm sorry, the NFC North. I'm going old school. You look at the NFC North. Outside of Green Bay, those other three teams are terrible. Even the Vikings. I think the Vikings are a terrible team. They want to fire, the coach again, who I think is a good defensive coordinator, but they want to fire him. NFC East. Dallas looks like, as sickening as it says, this sounds, but Dallas looks like they're the best team of that division. The Giants aren't going anywhere. The Eagles aren't going anywhere. The Washington football team, Redskins, would have a chance to go somewhere, but that all depends on that offense. Okay.
Yeah.
So, are all your wild card teams going to come out of the NFC West? Which is possible. I mean, you got probably the best division.
Yeah.
And so that leaves Carolina and New Orleans battling out for a wild card spot. So let's see. That's why I said, now if we get to the playoffs, we play in a wild card game. Depending on who we draw, I don't expect us to win. Right now, playing the way we play right now.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's a long way from there. A lot of injuries could happen. We saw
just like we saw last year. It just depends on who gets hot in December.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Final thoughts. Giants are coming to the Dome this week. The Superdome, this will be the first time in over a year that they are allowing 70,000 people in the Dome. So it's going to be loud. It's going to be obnoxious. Giants history, when the Saints play the Giants, except for that one bizarre game in New York, we've pretty much dominated that team and dominated them badly. I mean, you had the shootout in 2015, but normally we just kick the crap out of the Giants. We really do. And I don't see that really changing. I don't see Daniel Jones having a great game against his defense. How do y'all see this game playing out?
Even if Eli Manning trots out of that tunnel, this is going to be an ass whipping.
All right. Bob?
That fine analysis. Yeah, I think you're right. But listen, I don't think, and again, we've talked all night about the way this team is constructed right now under Sean Payton. So I think an ass beating by the Saints is not going to consist of 42, 45, 49 points on the board.
No.
I think it's going to be a physical beatdown, but the final score might be similar to what we saw from the New England Patriots game this past week. I don't see unless the New York Giants manage to get hot at an inopportune time or get a bunch of fluke plays. I don't really see them being able to do anything on the ground or through the air against the Saints defense. Now, remember, Dennis Allen's schemes have typically struggled against mobile quarterbacks, and Daniel Jones, believe it or not, is the Giants' leading rusher. Saquon Barkley hasn't quite gotten on track. He's certainly a dangerous weapon. And the Saints do have some receivers, that he could spread the ball around to, but nobody that's going to really jump off the charts. If the Saints play their game defensively, the Giants won't get any more than a couple of scores on the board. As long as the New Orleans offense doesn't do anything stupid, like turn the ball over consistently.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that.
I made a joke, but you're going to have to contain Saquon Barkley. You don't want this to be the game where he shows up and becomes the Saquon of old. The defense is going to have to play lights out the way that they have for the or the way that they did last week. I'm not scared of Daniel Jones. The best chance that the Giants will have, in my opinion, is going to be on the back of Saquon Barkley. And this team so far, and historically over the past several years, has done very well against the run. So as one of y'all alluded to a while ago, I look for it to be a lot like last week in New England.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb here, so I'm probably gonna jinx the team. But
Thanks, Alan.
I know this is the one game where I think the Saints defense could shut them out. Honestly, I think the Saints defense could shut the Giants out because everything the Giants do well, and there's not much that they do well, is the strength of this Saints defense.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be trying to go into the teeth of the defense to run the football, and they like to throw the ball underneath short passes with the occasional deep shot. They like to throw those short intermediate passes in the middle of the field. Well, that's what the Saints love. You know, they think they can go man to man on all their receivers and take away everything, and they can rush the passer and beat up that Giants offensive line. So it make Daniel Jones beat them in the pocket trying to throw the ball over the field. So, you know, that's why I think they have a good shot of shutting this team out. And I think they can get the short fields to give the Saints offense multiple opportunities to score. I don't know if this will be a 5-touchdown performance by Jameis Winston again. In fact,
that was an accident.
Well, I think this is going to be, if there's going to be 5 touchdowns, I think it's going to be 5 touchdowns on the ground by Alvin Kamara.
And this could be, given the way the Giants are athletically, and they just lost their best linebacker. They do, again, they have some talent to rush the passer and some big beefy guys up front, but they're thin and they could wear down. This could be a get-right game, one of those huge games. Where Kamara is breaking things left and right, either as a short pass receiver or as a rusher if he gets to the edge.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a game, too, where you see a lot of Taysom Hill again.
Yeah.
Taking snaps and running, you know, and I always love – Saints Twitter makes me laugh, and I promise we need to get off anyway because we're almost an hour and 40 minutes here. But Saints Twitter makes me laugh because they'll bitch – here we go. Taysom Hill in the game, run up the middle. Everybody in the whole stadium knows this. They're going to do this. And he gets 3 yards. He gets 2 yards. Then he gets 8 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards later on, running the same damn play because they get tired of getting run over. And like Alvin Kamara says, Taysom's looking to hit somebody. You know, he has got a Larry Zonker streak to him. He's looking to lay somebody out. And I think this is going to be the kind of game where Taysom Hill vultures a couple touchdowns. You know, if they get the ball inside the 5, he just runs between Throckmorton and Ramczyk right there in that B gap and just plows through for a touchdown. And people get pissed because Alvin Kamara should have got that touchdown. You know, all the fantasy guys. So, yeah, I think this is a game where the Saints score most of their touchdowns, if not all of them, on the ground. Just because I think this is a game, a feel-good game to make people feel good about this offense again. And he's playing at home. So if Drew Brees was quarterback, I would say this is when Sean Payton pulls out the 2011 playbook, annihilation playbook, blows the dust off and says, okay, we're calling 4 verts on the first play scrimmage.
Yep.
We're going with, you know, we're out here. We're looking to score 60. You know,
Yep.
I mean, I don't think this team.
Sean Payton still has a big beef with the New York Giants.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah.
I think that if this team has the opportunity to score a lot of points, they should.
And they will.
To hell with running up the score and all that. This team needs to kick itself in the ass and get things going in the right direction.
And they need to in front of the home crowd. I mean,
absolutely.
First time in over a year, that you've got a hometown crowd, 70,000 plus in the dome. It's going to be loud. It's going to be rocking. They're going to want to do something to make keep this crowd loud.
Yeah.
And you think about when Teddy Bridgewater, I think his first start in 2019 at home was against Tampa Bay, and that was his best performance.
Yep.
So I think this is where Peyton is a little more off the hook when it comes to his play calling, a little more daring, a little more aggressive. Winston probably tries to throw a couple bombs, to Deontay Harris. But I really think this is going to be the game that Alvin Kamara really scores a lot, So anyway, Bob, I always ask you this as the final part of the thing. I know you've got articles coming out. I saw you had the Giants Saints history. You mentioned the fight, I'm sure, right? From 1967? Or did you go that far back?
No, I mentioned the game, but I didn't mention the fight. As far as the longer portions of the article, it was pretty much the weird intertwined history between these franchises. The home game right after 9/11 in New York, the home game at New York, right after Katrina, and now you have Hurricane. You had Hurricane Ida, who was the offensive coordinator for the Giants that day? Let me back up. The offensive coordinator for the Giants at the 9/11 game was Sean Payton. Yeah. Then you had the Hurricane Katrina home game, and now you have a legitimate home return with Ida. So I was kind of focused on that. But hey, listen, I love writing about football history in general, but especially Saints history. And then through the rest of the week, I had my first of 4 matchups, offensive and defensive side of the ball, coming out tomorrow morning probably, because it's ready to go.
Well, real quick, I'll just throw this in because I mentioned it. The Saints, the famous fight in 1967. Steve Stonebreaker got upset that he thought one of his players took a cheap shot from the Giants bench. So after the game was over with, he grabbed Doug Atkins, which I would grab Doug Atkins too. 6'8" dude, and he says, "Let's go get him." And they went over there. He went over to the Giants bench and started a fight at their bench. Yes. And, it's on.
Well, when your name is Stonebreaker, you kind of got a bonus there.
Yeah.
What number did Stonebreaker wear?
Yours, 37. 37. But, it's the game. If you look up Giants Saints 1967, there's a little clip that came from the Saints highlight film, but you see the fight in like the first 10 seconds of the clip. You see the fight, a bit of the fight. They didn't show the whole thing, but you see Doug Atkins with 3 guys, and then somebody's whacking him with the helmet. I mean, it's straight out of Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. The helmet, the crap out of him, but.
If you're going into a fight and you take your helmet off, you're an idiot.
I know. But the long shot of that thing was, okay, so Stonebreaker's going to get suspended for that fight. And the Saints fans loved it so much that they started a collection to pay his fine. And Rozelle said, no, you fans can't pay this fine. You have to pay this fine. And granted, for 1967, if I told you the fine was $1,000, we could raise $1,000. That's not much of a fine at all. But in '67, that was a huge fine.
Yeah.
So, because the Saints fans couldn't pay the fine, they started a club, and it was the Steve Stonebreaker, some kind of club named after Stonebreaker, and it eventually became the Touchdown Club in New Orleans. And the Touchdown Club in New Orleans still is in existence today. We haven't had a Meet the Saints luncheon in 3 years, or 2 years, but that's where the Meet the Saints luncheon takes place during the preseason, the Touchdown Club in New Orleans, and it all started from that fight in '67, Saints inaugural year. All right. thank you guys for joining us. Oh yeah, I don't know if Lutz is going to play or not. I really don't know. A 70-yarder. Wow.
Justin Tucker. Oh my God.
I tell you what.
He's my kicker on my fantasy team, by the way.
Did you get extra points for that kick?
I did.
Yeah. You realize, again, Saints history, Saints beat the Lions by identical score with a record-setting field goal, 63-yarder, 19-17, and it was almost the same amount of time left, but this was a 66-yarder, and this one doinked off the goalpost. And it's funny to watch it from Tucker's point of view, because you see the Lions fans all jump up and celebrate when they see it hit the goalpost. And then when it goes in, it's just like you see them all just go down like that. That is hilarious. And
how very Detroit.
The one Ravens fan goes, yeah, so it was hilarious. It really was. That is such a Lions thing. Not once, but twice having the NFL record for field goals go against you, and you lose both times. So, yeah, the touchdown. Yeah, Chad, I'll tell you, that's the history of the Touchdown Club in New Orleans. It came from that Stonebreaker fight. So anyway,
it all starts with the number 37, man.
Yeah. Rebirth started with 37. The Touchdown Club started with 37. I'll talk about something.
This podcast started with number 37.
Yeah. I'll go bring up a story about Benny Thompson and Mel Gray sometime. They both wore 37 as well. And my buddy, my favorite safety of all time for the Saints, and there's been a lot of good ones, but Tommy Myers wore number 37.
Tommy Myers, yep.
Little 5'10" headhunter. But
I didn't know that until I went to a Saints game and went into the Hall of Fame, and they have one of Stonebreaker's jerseys in there.
I learned about the fight in Stonebreaker when I got my Saga of the Saints book back in '92. That's where I started to learn about the fight in that year. And they got a big picture of Stonebreaker, and he died not long after that. Unfortunately, he committed suicide, and he probably had CTE, but because a lot of players, of course, in that era did. But yeah, I saw a big picture of Stonebreaker, and he used to have a restaurant, and his son played for the Saints briefly, Michael Stonebreaker. We've had a few sons of the original Saints play for this team.
I wish the hell Cooper Kupp was one of them.
Oh, that's grandson, but yeah, you're right about that. I wish you did too. But in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us tonight and sticking with us for almost 2 hours. But when we start off talking about off the rails from the get-go, talking about family, when we start talking about football, we really run out of time. Bob, It's almost 11 o'clock his time right now, so I know he's ready to go to bed. I'm ready to go to bed. I've been up since 5 this morning. So, and Sean's just getting ready to go to work. So thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.